Welcome to In Our Community here at KMVT. My name is Joe Head, and with me is Yvette Head. Yvette is my daughter-in-law, and Yvonne is my wife. And Yvonne and Yvette are active working artists that would complete 25 to 50 paintings in a year. So they both do a lot of work. And we thought it would be interesting for you to join us and let me introduce you to Yvette's artistic world. I'm definitely not the artist in the family. In fact, I have a bit of a red-green color blindness, so I don't even necessarily pick out my ties every day either with great accuracy. For those of you who are not artists, hopefully my questions will stimulate some thinking on your part and lead you into something that is interesting. For those of you that are and with us, no intermediary is necessary. Yvette and the paintings will be your main focus. I've asked Yvette to bring some paintings we can talk about today. I think we have 6 of them. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to start with one that is a favorite of Yvette's, and here it is. And we'll start off by asking Yvette, why are you in love with this painting?
This painting is something that I did probably about 3 to 4 years ago. Maybe only 3 years ago, to be honest. And it's actually hung in my house because this painting, I want to hold on to it. It's dear to me because it was a turning point in my style of painting. I like to sketch and doodle in a sketchbook, and this is actually based off one of those designs that was probably all of this size. And for it to come alive, how it did on this painting was real exciting to me. But it's not just so much the design, it's also the risk-taking I did. I incorporated some darker colors that I normally don't do. I experimented more with my glazing and how I do apply the paint, which we'll talk about more about that.
Okay, so if I'm thinking in a representational frame of mind, this is a blossom?
Yeah, I call them actually abstract botanicals because they are very imaginary, but they're also kind of distorted. They're not, they're kind of moody sometimes they're cheery, but they're very much not traditional, and they're not definitely something you'd find in nature. Out of my head.
And the color in this painting, was it visual to you when you first thought of it? Did it come about as you were working on it?
It kind of came about when I was working on it. I don't work in a traditional way at all. So my palette is not on a piece of parchment paper or something. They're actually little tubs of paint. It's fluid acrylics that I use, and I use them almost like watercolor. So do you want me to go into the process of it? So I work in kind of 3 major steps, and the first step is creating my texture and my line work and then my color. So on this color palette, this is something I personally aesthetically would do my house in these colors. So this is something that I'm comfortable with and something that I was selfish and kind of created this.
Okay, so you talked about line work. Mm-hmm. And let me shift a little to my right. Is this line work?
Yes.
Okay. So this is also kind of petals or a botanical, the way you call it?
Mm-hmm. This is similar.
Okay, so talk to me about line work and tell me where this is in relation to the finished. Where are you at on this one? Is this one you're working on now?
Yes, and this is actually brand new, and it is just started. So it's hard to see here in the studio, but the white background is full of texture, and that texture is created by using molding paste. And over the years, I've experimented with different types of ways to create texture, and right now this is my happy zone. So the texture I create has nooks and crannies in it. I want it to be very organic. I want it to enhance the glazing that I apply later. So once that texture's done, it becomes my foundation, and it's sitting there ready to be filled. But
so that's in this area here?
It's in that area there. So after that, I'll do my line work, and that is a detailed a detail painting, basically. And again, it's with fluid acrylics, but I added gel mediums to them to make it thick and goopy. I call it my goop sometimes, which isn't really professional, but I mean, I want it to goop up. I want it to have mishaps. I want it to be organic. This all comes from my head. When I do this, I start with my center of my bloom, and then I grow it out. So like right now, I kind of like it undone. It's more abstract to me, and I don't know.
Would you stop it here?
I don't know yet. It's not done, obviously, but I do want to create a little bit more line work, but maybe my lines are different colors. Maybe they aren't petals. Maybe it's more of a background, images that are coming through, more twigs. I don't know yet, so.
When you see this in the line drawings, does your mind flash color on top of this as, you know, something we're looking at in the finished painting we started with, or do you just really see the black and white in the lines?
So I only see the black and white in the lines right now.
Okay.
It's not until it's done that I kind of go, okay, what's next? I get to think about color. No, I really don't at this phase. It's all design right now.
Is this close to being done? Mm-hmm. But more to go on it?
Yeah, there is going to be more to go on it. And the thing is, when you draw with a pen, not a pencil, when you're with a pen, you can't erase your mistakes. You have to work with it. And right now, nothing's in pencil. So if I were to make a mistake, technically, I could cover it up with more molding paste or something and cover it up and erase it. But I like the challenge and just see what happens.
So this is all a pen of some kind?
No, it's a detailer that has.
A detailer is like what?
It's like an applicator that has my thick gel and paint in it, and it has a thin tip on it. So I've tried different ways of creating lines, and that's what I'm doing right now. So it's kind of squeezing it out, kind of, with the tip.
Okay, so let me. I think maybe you have it.
The next painting, which has a little bit of color to it.
The little bit of color. Oh, that you have it.
I have it.
Yeah.
And so I do.
And this is, I also do a series on trees. Again, it kind of follows my aesthetic of abstract botanical type, you know, following nature. And so the trees are so exciting to me because they have a lot of character. I like the old trees that are crooked and the bark is falling off, and they're not creepy, but they've got a lot of, you know, character, their personality to them.
And how long ago was this tree looking like the botanical, the blossom we saw before?
This one's probably, it's probably, this was probably like after the line work is done on the tree, I started the color, and the color so far at this phase is probably taking me like a couple days in the studio. And again, this is my first layer of color. So the greens that you see there and the browns, they're kind of flat and maybe matte right now. At this phase, this brown, for instance, it has orange and yellow and maybe some green on top of it. They're transparent layers that are built on top. It gives my designs more depth. So this is the first layer of color right now.
And will you continue, is the color we can see here, that's still being worked on? That's still in your mind part of the creative process?
Yeah. It's kind of like, as a kid, you pick up a coloring book and you're like, you know, it's just like, okay, we get to color it. Where am I going to start? What colors am I going to use? So I'm still kind of developing that, but I've already gone past the phase of like, okay, what is my tree going to look like? Also, too, when I'm doing this, as an artist, I'm thinking of my elements of design like contrast and things like that. I don't want everything to be very monochromatic. So as I kind of get the first layer of color, then I'll start thinking about, okay, what's got to pop more out? What's got to be more of my focal point? What needs to recede back and things like that.
Are you working both on the blossom and the tree
at the same time?
At the same time. And is that typical?
Yes. I work usually, because my layers need to dry, I'll usually work 3 to 4 paintings at a time at that size. Yeah. In my small studio.
Do you tend to pick a favorite, like I've got to continue on the tree, I'm just there, or I've got to work on the blossom, or do they talk to you yet? Are they far enough along to kind of capture and light a fire?
I do need to take breaks from them, so I'll get so far on them, and sometimes I do get I just will keep working. Dinner won't get made. I'll be in my studio all night or something where I just get absorbed into it. So some do just really, I just don't want to stop. And there are times I need to stop.
Okay. Is there a point in your painting where you begin to feel this isn't going where I want, so you kind of lose interest?
Yes.
Okay. And are there times then conversely where something really is kind of rolling and you get into it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And here in our first painting, that was one that was like kind of, you just got rolling with it? Or?
I got rolling with it, and I think I'm just thinking back to it when this was coming out. And it's also interesting that I wanted to say too that I have to wait sometimes overnight for these layers to dry. So it's almost like Christmas in the morning to come in to my studio and see what it looks like. And the thing is that unlike like watercolor, for instance, the color when it dries is usually that's what it's going to look like. With the acrylic and the different gels and glazing I add to it, when it's wet, it looks completely different than when it looks dry. So when I would wake up and as this was developing, it was just really it was just exciting to me. And I was doing a lot of what ifs. What if I do that? What if I try this? And it, as it dried, it just became, I learned a lot from this that I took to create future work.
Okay, so let's bring up the next painting.
Okay.
And we'll put this one down.
Okay. And this one's also a tree. Can you get that corner, Joe?
I've got the corner.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
And this is more kind of a stylized abstract. It's almost more pattern-based or more graphic than that work, where that's more loose and organic. This is a little bit more, I don't know how to explain it, but it was another sketch that I did that I kind of want to continue on a series with this as well.
And this painting precedes, obviously, the tree that's still in process.
It is much older than that as well. It is newer than the green blossom that we saw earlier. Okay,
so and tell me how a tree ends up like this when this one is looking this way at this point in time. Because for the non-artist eye, this is a very different tree than the tree you're working on.
I know. This tree, it's also, jumping back, the texture on this painting is a lot heavier than the texture on there. Since then, I don't always do this heavier texture, so I think that's part of the overall painting is you do see a lot of texture in it. But the tree, he's not I call him a he, whatever. He's not the main dominant feature, although he is the largest feature. I played with the openings and the branches by creating new shapes inside. Like my sun actually looks like one of my blossoms. The hills look like petals. I just kind of played with like imaginary kind of things. It's kind of childlike to me. It's kind of fun.
Because from my look at it, I kind of thought tree, blossom. These look like blossoms.
And the roots, I've loved, like this one, the roots aren't so dramatic.
I didn't see those.
Yeah, and the roots are another opportunity to create some fun lines and personality to it as well.
But the technique, again, you would have started this painting with the black lines we saw on the blossom just a little bit ago, and then it develops and matures into this finished painting.
Exactly.
Okay.
And in this palette, I had a predetermined colors I wanted to try.
Talk a little about that. Do you have predetermined colors on this tree?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, but talk about the predetermined colors on this one.
Again, I use a lot of orange and rusty. Well, in all my paintings, I start with greens. Obviously, green is my go-to, and it's also kind of a neutral color to work with. But I wanted this to be a little bit brighter, but not as intense as a pure orange or a pure blue or pure green, teal, I should say. So I muted them back. I kind of, mixed some colors in to make them a little more, darker or shades and stuff. I wanted it to be colorful. I wanted to kind of play. It isn't as, there is some bright colors in it. So I just wanted to be a little more lively. So I did kind of punch my colors up more than normal.
Did it come out where you wanted it to be?
Yeah, it did. The only thing is that it is the line work on this one. If you noticed, I did something different. It's a light line. It's a light green. It's almost kind of a whitish light green. And so the lines don't show up as much on this painting. So it has a different overall look. So I'm happy with it because it is fun.
But the first painting we looked at was your in love painting.
Yeah.
This one is not, but still something you like. So any insight, anything you can talk about that from your energy point of view, if that's the right word, distinguishes the painting so then we can think about it as looking at it, what lights us up, or what, from the first painting to this painting?
Why I don't like this one as much?
Well, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's a good question. Probably because the lines are lighter. I do like more darker lines, maybe, the outlining of things. It's a different style, too. I think this one was a quick sketch that I did. Not a quick, it was a little quicker, and I don't know, the other one is about the same. It's a tough question, Joe. I think aesthetically, I like the darkness of that one. That was fun. This one's I think if it is, I may keep it. I don't know. It is something kind of, it's hard to say. Maybe the colors is probably not my favorite.
The fact this is different, we've been talking about that. Let's show our audience something that's really different from what we've talked about before.
Definitely.
And I'll put up that sketch.
Okay.
First, I need to take this guy down.
I was invited a few years back to do a painting for a Day of the Dead art show. And then after that one, I was invited to another one. So this was the first Katrina that I did. This was definitely a fun challenge for me because I've dabbled with doing like female portraiture kind of thing. I personally like to paint more abstract, and I don't want to do traditional type of portraiture, but I wanted to see if I can, translate that into my style. And so I really had a blast doing these. This is Forget Me Not, and that's a sketch from Marigold. Forget Me Not is actually bought by my mother-in-law, so we'll have this one forever. But Marigold, I did sell that one to a proud owner. It was really fun. But she was hard to part with because I spent more time with.
This sketch doesn't match this painting.
Exactly, good point.
So the sketch came first, okay, and came at the invitation to do some work, as you said, in a Day of the Dead celebration. Was this, how many pre-sketches to this? This your first sketch?
No. The sketch began smaller, like a regular sketchbook size. And once I became comfortable with the overall composition of, Marigold was a bride that never was. So if you can see remnants of like a veil, you see they all have flowers on their heads. She's also more elegant and more mature. She's got a longer neck. I used my shapes to resemble almost like bones, so it's more skeletal looking. Obviously, that's what Katrinas are kind of, they have those skeletal features. So she was, that drawing was more intricate, and it has a lot of planned, compositioned, elements to it. So I actually took that drawing, and I traced it onto the canvas. And unlike the way I do my other paintings, the other paintings are all just by reference to a sketch, and I just go straight forward on the canvas. These I wanted to pre-plan ahead. So that's why that sketch is like that, and I did her the same way.
So you referred to this one, I think, as Marigold. Is that a made-up name that you've created?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was this Marigold first and...
No, Forget Me Not was first.
Forget Me Not was first, Marigold was second.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Did they come immediately after each other?
Yes.
Like, finished one?
Yes.
Or painted together?
They were not painted together. They were done separately, probably within 2 weeks apart at the most. Not very far apart.
And did you do some research? How did you...
Yeah. Yeah, I did a little research. I mean, just living here in San Jose, I'm very aware with the Day of the Dead celebration, and I think Nick's I would like to do a male figure, but I think the female figures were really interesting to me because I can incorporate the botanical kind of style that I do. And I also really had fun in working with their eyes and and just the details of their mouth, keeping it kind of graphic, but it was really fun, and the colors are much more intense than I usually work with, so that was kind of fun too.
Are you trying to capture some kind of an element of a portrait? Mm-hmm. Okay, and if so, is this lady reflective, sad? What do you see in her eyes? And I mean, her hair is botanicals, or as a portrait, how do you see her?
Forget Me Not is almost to me like almost like a teenager, and she's pissed. She's mad. Her life was taken too soon. Something happened. I don't go into that detail, but she's more of an attitude like, I could have really rocked this world, and this is it. So she has this kind of young spunkiness, and she's a little bit pissed, a little angry. Whereas Marigold is, like I said, she was more mature, and she was the bride that didn't happen, and in fact, that sketch, the finished piece, is a little different than that actual sketch. It kind of evolved a bit different. She's more of like bummed out, but that's what it is, So
well, let's stick with our rebellious teenager.
Yeah.
I think that's really neat. So when this is Forget Me Not, okay, shouldn't forget me not.
Yeah.
She started as a sketch as Marigold did, correct? Okay. And did you see her as that rebellious teenager right from the start, or how did she become that?
No.
What did you see when you started?
It was just, this is my very, very first Katrina, and also a very first like skeleton type thing. I didn't want her to look like a skull or anything like that. I still wanted to give a peek of that, but I wanted her to be somewhat human-like as well. But I did want it to be kind of creepy, but not too creepy. And I wanted it to be pretty dramatic. So it wasn't until I was finishing with the sketch that her eyes it developed as I worked on her. And then I followed through with it.
Okay, so some of the things I see in this is you have blossoms here.
Yes.
I mean, that looks like a blossom to me. Looks like a couple of them here. So she's kind of dressed up from my point of view.
Yes.
Maybe even going somewhere. Because I look at that as kind of like a headdress or some kind of a big do.
Yeah.
And so but her eyes to me are haunting. The rebellious part, for me, you picked that up.
She is a little haunting, yeah. And she's not looking straight. Well, she's kind of looking off too. It's this kind of, you can tell, to me, she's kind of thinking of.
So let me take, and I'm going to give you this sketch to hold, because I think it's good with you doing that.
Thank you.
And so this was the second. Marigold's the second. So what kind of things were you thinking here, and what's her story? So I'm presuming not the rebellious teenager.
No. She spent a lot of time on this special day, and she is as beautiful as she can be on your wedding day, and all Katrinas have large flowers and different things, and I did a cluster of kind of bone type flowers, and she's got the elongated neck. Her eyes are a little bit more dreamy when they were finished and painted. She didn't have that kind of spookiness looking to her, but at the same time, they were kind of empty. It's like, that was it.
So what colors did you do with her? We know you sold this painting on, so we're using the sketch to do the top.
Yeah, very similar.
Grays and greens and that kind of thing.
Yeah, there were oranges, and I think there were a lot of colors, and it was very jazzy as well. But I did incorporate more white and different things, and some pastels.
And her face is, again, the white skull look.
I believe it was, yeah. Yes.
Okay, so let's return then from Marigold to a blossom painting.
Yes. This is also a painting I just finished a few months ago.
And I'll start you doing a little connection, because does Marigold or Forget Me Not have any reflection in this painting?
Oh, wow. That's a good point. I would say yes, because every painting that I do, there's always something I've done that I'm like, I want to recreate that and do that. I liked the dark lines, and I did the dark line work on here as well. And against the dark lines, I did some kind of a little bit of pop colors, like even pastel colors, and a little bit. And I think also too, this blossom, it's not, some of my abstract botanicals can become very just colorful and pretty and look pretty on your wall, where some have a little bit more personality to them. And I think this one has a little bit attitude to it, if that's possible in a flower.
Maybe it is, because why I ask the question is, whatever the center of the blossom here is, for my eye, it's light colored. It's not exactly white, but it's where I go immediately.
Yes.
And it looks to me like it almost is either an eye looking back at me,
Oh, okay.
or a face. It has the same kind of reflective, for me, kind of first blush that marigold would have had.
Oh, wow. As you say that, I can see that obviously I wanted your eye to go to the center of this bloom as well. I kept it lighter, and that's when I played with the contrast. And also the darker petals are at the end and the edges.
So we're getting close to wrapping up.
Okay.
So let me throw a little curveball at you, and then don't. So talk to people about who might be interested in paintings, and begin that by why have I moved the painting
It really
wrong?
bothers me. No kidding.
Good. So talk about that, and then talk to the audience about what you would like to say to people who are really interested in painting, and then I'll do a very short wrap.
I think, okay, when I start any design on this square format, my format square, depending on what I'm working on, I do not start from the dead center of a painting. I always do off-center. And off-center creates an asymmetrical design eventually, and that's my fun challenge. I always want to challenge myself and push myself, how I can be creative and create it more interesting. So once I start off center, I've got to think about, okay, I've got to make sure I've got interesting things happening on the left or the right or the bottom. And usually my blossoms, the center of them are usually the largest shape, and everything else around it is smaller, the petals, the stems, the leaves, those kind of things. So it's, it is usually, it's off center, and I've got to, I want it to be kind of up high. That's it. Yeah. It's
That was it?
For me, I think it needs to be up higher. That's how I work it. I like the heaviness to be on the bottom. So I have experimented moving the center of it at different places, but it usually have more than one blossom or something. Or I do a lot of just one major one is what I like to do. I think they have more personality than doing like a little floral type of painting that has all sorts of flowers on it. And I've done those, but they just don't do anything for me. I think these need to take on their own individual look.
So maybe what we can wrap up with, or leave people who have hopefully enjoyed being with us today, is that there's a variety of view here. It always strikes me, because I have a little bit of color blindness, that the greens and the pinks and the reds that you see, I don't see the same way.
Okay.
And all of our visions are different. So if your imagination is taking you into painting, I just look at you and the things you've showed us today and how many different things you've done. And because I know you as my daughter-in-law, I've seen a lot more than we've been able to do today.
Sure.
And I would encourage others of you who are thinking about doing painting, whatever age and wherever you're at. I've watched Yvonne really blossom, and I'm using the word, and enjoy yourself. We've loved being able to share this with you. Thank you.
Thank you.